Mom, I think it's best if you get your own place. Just for now. I stood in my son's kitchen, holding a dish towel, and my hands went still. Behind him, his wife Ashley didn't even look up from her phone. I set the towel down slowly, so my hands wouldn't shake in front of him. 3 days later, that same son would be pounding on my apartment door at 11 at night, begging me to come back before it was too late. There was a small copper key in my coat pocket that night. I didn't know yet what it was going to unlock. My name is Diane Marsh. I'm 61 years old. I spent 34 years as an emergency room nurse at Miami Valley Hospital in Dayton, Ohio, and I retired 18 months before any of this happened. If you're new here, welcome to the Quiet Rise. Drop a comment and let me know what city you're watching from tonight, because I read every single one, and this story still isn't easy for me to tell. Let me take you back to where it started. Not the kitchen, before that. It was a Sunday in April, and the light coming through Kevin's kitchen window had that thin, yellow, early spring color. Somebody was frying bacon. My grandson Eli, he's 7, was drawing dinosaurs at the table with a purple crayon worn down to a nub. My granddaughter Mia was 4, and she kept trying to steal bites of bacon off the plate before it was ready. I remember the smell of coffee. Folgers, the same kind Frank used to buy, because Kevin never switched brands after his father passed. I remember thinking that was sweet. A small thing. A son keeping a habit alive without even noticing he was doing it. Frank had been gone 14 months by then. Pancreatic cancer. Fast, the way the bad ones sometimes are. 4 months from diagnosis to the funeral. After it did, Kevin asked me to move in for a while to help with the kids and to not be alone in that big house Frank and I had shared for 30 years. I said yes before he finished the sentence. That Sunday, Ashley came downstairs in her robe, poured coffee, and didn't say much. She rarely did, first thing in the morning. I didn't think anything of it. Some people just aren't morning people. I told myself that 100 times over the following months, and I believed it, mostly. We talked about small things. Eli's soccer game, whether the Kroger down the road had good peaches yet. Ashley mentioned, almost in passing, that she'd been in touch with a financial advisor about restructuring some accounts. I nodded. I didn't ask questions. Why would I? It wasn't my business, or so I thought. That was the last easy morning. I didn't know it at the time. Nobody ever does. 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday evening, Kevin came home late from work. I had dinner ready, pot roast, the way Frank liked it, the way I'd taught myself to make it for his father before that. Kevin didn't sit down. He stood in the doorway of the kitchen with his jacket still on. "Mom, can we talk?" "Of course," I said. "Sit. Eat first. I'd rather talk now." Ashley came in behind him and leaned against the counter. Arms crossed, she looked at the floor, not at me. "Mom, I think it's best if you get your own place," Kevin said. "Just for now." I set my fork down. Did I do something? No, it's not like that. He wouldn't look at me either. It's just Ashley and I think the kids need more. I don't know. Structure. Routine. Having 2 households worth of rules under one roof is confusing for them. I don't set rules for your children. Kevin, I know you don't mean to. It's a lot, having someone else in the house full time. Ashley finally spoke. "It's not personal, Diane." 4 words. Just 4 words. And they landed like a slap. It's not personal. As if a woman being asked to leave her son's home 18 months after burying her husband could be anything but personal. I didn't cry in front of them. "I want you to know that," I said. "Okay." And I went upstairs and started folding my clothes into the same suitcase I'd brought them in. That night, lying on the guest bed for what I knew was one of my last nights in that house, I asked myself if I was overreacting. Frank used to say, "Diane, don't let hurt feelings write the whole story." He said that about a coworker once, a nurse who'd gotten short with me during a bad shift. He was right that time. Maybe he'd be right this time, too. I turned it over and over. Kevin wasn't a cruel boy. He never had been. Even as a teenager, he was the kind who apologized before you finished being mad at him. This didn't sound like him. It sounded like somebody had written the lines and handed them to him an hour before dinner. I thought about Ashley's face when she said it wasn't personal. She didn't look guilty. She looked relieved. Primera, told myself, trust takes longer to lose than money does. Frank used to say that too, about people who cut corners at work. I didn't understand yet how literally that sentence was about to apply to my own life. I packed, anyway. I didn't want to make it harder on Kevin than it already seemed to be for him. Whatever this was, I decided I'd give him room to work through it. 3 days after the kitchen conversation, I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment, 10 minutes away. Small, clean, a little lonely. I unpacked my dishes. I hung a photo of Frank on the wall by the window, the one from our 40th anniversary. him laughing at something off camera. A week after I moved out, I ran into Carol Whitfield at the Kroger. Kara had worked the front desk at Kevin and Ashley's bank branch for 11 years, 5th, 3rd, downtown location. She used to help me when I still had power of attorney duties for Frank's estate account. Before everything transferred fully to Kevin, she saw me in the produce aisle and her face changed. Just slightly. The kind of change you only notice if you've spent 30 years reading faces in an ERA waiting room. "Diane," she said. "Lo, how are you holding up?" "I'm fine." "Carol, why do you ask?" She glanced over her shoulder. Nobody was near us. Still, she lowered her voice further. "I probably shouldn't say anything, but you were always good to me. Just keep an eye on things. That's all I'll say." "What things?" "I really can't say more than that." She touched my arm. "Just be careful, honey." She walked away before I could ask another question. I stood there next to a bin of peaches for a long moment, my heart doing something strange and slow. I didn't sleep well that night. The next morning, I called the bank and asked, as calmly as I could manage, whether I still had any access to the joint estate account Frank had set up years earlier, the one meant to hold his life insurance payout and a portion of his 401k, structured to eventually pass to Kevin and the grandkids' education fund. I still had view-only access. Frank had never removed me, even after transferring primary control to Kevin following his diagnosis. I logged in from my kitchen table with my reading glasses pushed up on my nose, and I started scrolling. The number at the bottom of the screen didn't match what I remembered. Frank's payout, plus the 401k rollover, should have totaled just over $412,000. The balance on my screen read $61,200. I read it 3 times. I thought I'd made a mistake. I called the bank's customer service line and asked them to walk me through the transaction history for the past year. There were transfers, regular ones, $8,000 here, $12,000 there. A $30,000 transfer in October, labeled only family expense. A wire to an account I didn't recognize, sent in February, 4 months after Frank's death, for $45,000. I wrote every single transaction down on a legal pad. My hand was steady. I don't know how. Maybe 34 years in an ER teaches you how to keep your hands steady when everything inside you is not. I called Kevin that afternoon. I asked him, gently, if he knew what had happened to his father's account. "What do you mean? What happened to it?" "Ashley's been managing it. She's better with numbers than I am." "Kevin, there's over $350,000 missing." Silence on the line. Then, that can't be right. "Let me talk to Ashley." He called me back 2 hours later. She said it's all accounted for. Investments. She moved it into something with better returns. She's going to send me the paperwork. "Has she sent it to you yet?" "She will." She did not send it. Not that week. Not the next. I decided I needed more than a phone call could give me. I made an appointment with an estate attorney, a woman named Patricia, who had helped Frank and me draft our wills 11 years earlier. I brought the legal pad. I brought bank printouts. I brought copies of Frank's original account paperwork, the ones listing me as a secondary beneficiary and account monitor, a designation Frank had never revoked, whether Ashley knew that or not. Patricia looked through everything for almost an hour without saying much. Then she looked up at me over her glasses. "Diane, some of these transfers required a signature. Yours? I never signed anything?" She turned the printout around and slid it across the desk. There, at the bottom of a transfer authorization form dated the previous September, was my signature. Except it wasn't. The D looped the wrong direction. I've signed my name maybe 40,000 times in my life. I know my own handwriting, the way I know my own face. This was close. It was close enough to fool a bank teller glancing at it for 3 seconds. It was not close enough to fool me. "Someone forged this," I said. "I think," Patricia said carefully, "we need to find out who had access to your identification and your account information." I thought about the months after Frank's funeral. Ashley bringing me casseroles. Ashley asking to help organize Frank's paperwork so I wouldn't have to deal with it during my grief. Ashley borrowing my purse once to grab my insurance card at a doctor's appointment for Mia, because I'd forgotten mine at home, and Ashley said she had a spare copy of my ID from when she'd helped me renew my driver's license online. My stomach turned over slowly, like a wave folding in on itself. Over the next 2 weeks, Patricia and I built a file. We requested formal transaction records from the bank. We requested handwriting analysis on 3 of the disputed signatures. We found a real estate transaction, a down payment on a rental property in Ashley's maiden name. Purchased in November, $62,000, paid in cash from an account that traced back, through 2 transfers, to Frank's estate fund. We found a leased Lexus, payments of $940 a month, registered to Ashley alone. We found $31,000 spent across 4 months at furniture stores and a kitchen remodeling company. Work done on Kevin and Ashley's house that Kevin had told me, back in January, they'd paid for with savings. Patricia made a phone call to a colleague of hers, a forensic accountant named Robert Sa. He confirmed within 4 days what I already suspected in my gut, a pattern. Deliberate, timed to start almost exactly 6 weeks after Frank's funeral, back when I was still too heartbroken most mornings to get out of bed before 10. She waited until you weren't looking, Robert told me over the phone, gently, like he was breaking bad news about a patient. That's not disorganization, Diane. That's a plan. I sat with that sentence for a long time after I hung up. I asked Patricia what I should do next. She said, I had 2 paths. I could quietly confront Ashley and Kevin, try to recover what I could through private mediation. Or I could go through the bank's fraud department and, likely, the county prosecutor's office. Since forged signatures on financial documents cross the line into criminal territory, not just a family dispute, I told her I wanted to give my son a chance first. Whatever else Ashley had done, Kevin was still my boy. I didn't want his children watching their father get arrested on the front lawn if there was another way. We scheduled a gathering. Eli's actual birthday was coming up that Saturday. He was turning 8, and Kevin had already planned a small backyard party. I asked if I could come. Kevin sounded relieved. Of course, Mom. He's been asking why you haven't been around. I brought a folder. I didn't bring it inside where the kids could see it. I left it in my car until the right moment came. The party was small. A few of Eli's friends from school, balloons tied to the porch railing, a sheet cake from the grocery store with a dinosaur drawn in blue icing. The weather held warm. No wind. The kind of April afternoon Ohio doesn't give you very often. Ashley greeted me at the door with a stiff hug. Diane, glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it, I said. I watched her through most of the afternoon. She laughed with the other mothers. She cut the cake. She looked, for all the world, like a woman with nothing to hide, and something about that composure made my chest tighten more than if she'd looked nervous. After the cake, after the kids scattered into the backyard to run off the sugar, I asked Kevin if we could talk inside for a minute. Ashley followed us into the kitchen without being asked. I set the folder on the counter. What's this? Kevin asked. Everything, I said. Every transfer, every forged signature. The rental property, the car, the kitchen remodel. Ashley's face didn't move for a second, then her jaw tightened. Who slightly the way a person does right before they decide to lie anyway. You're going through our finances now, she said. That's not okay, Diane. It's not our finances, I said. It's Frank's estate. It's Eli and Mia's college fund, and it has my forged signature on 4 separate transfer authorizations. Kevin picked up the folder. His hands weren't steady the way mine had learned to be. He flipped through the pages slowly. I watched his face go from confusion to disbelief, to something that looked like the floor dropping out from under him. Ashley, he said quietly. What is this? Kevin. I can explain the Lexus, he said. You told me your dad helped with the Lexus. He did, partially, the rental house. You said that was your inheritance from your grandmother. Ashley's composure cracked then, right in front of both of us. Her voice went sharp and fast. Your mother has more money than she needs sitting in that account doing nothing. I was trying to build something for our family, for the kids, for our future, by forging my mother's signature. Kevin's voice had gone very quiet. Quieter than shouting, by having her leave our house so she wouldn't catch you. Ashley didn't answer that. She looked at the folder on the counter, then at me, and something in her expression finally looked less like anger and more like fear. Through the kitchen window, I could see Eli chasing Mia around the yard, both of them laughing, completely unaware that their whole world had just quietly cracked down the middle. Kevin didn't sleep that night. Neither did I. He called me at 11, his voice shaking. Mom, I don't know what to do. You call the bank's fraud line in the morning, I said. And you call Patricia. That's what you do. Ashley wants to talk to a lawyer first. Her own lawyer. She's welcome to. That's her, right? But Kevin, this isn't something we can smooth over at a family dinner. There was a long pause. I asked you to leave my house, he said, and his voice cracked on the word leave. I asked my own mother to leave, because Ashley told me it would be better for the kids, and the whole time, she was doing this. I know, honey. I'm so sorry. I didn't say it was okay. It wasn't, not yet. But I told him I loved him, and that we would get through whatever came next, together. The next morning, the fraud department at the bank opened a formal investigation. 2 days after that, Patricia filed the paperwork with the county prosecutor's office. Roberts' forensic accounting report went with it. 23 pages documenting every transfer, every falsified date, every forged authorization. Ashley was charged with 3 counts of forgery and 1 count of theft from an elderly person, a charge that applies in Ohio when a victim is 65 or older, though at 6. The more direct charges were financial exploitation and fraud under general Ohio statute. She hired a defense attorney. Kevin, for his part, cooperated fully with investigators, providing bank access, emails, and text messages that showed a clear pattern going back nearly a year. The following months moved slower than I expected and faster than I was ready for, both at once. There was a preliminary hearing in June. Ashley pled not guilty. There was a deposition in August where I sat across a conference table from a woman I had once welcomed into my family and answered questions about my own son's wedding, my husband's death, my own handwriting. For 3 hours, Kevin filed for divorce in September. He didn't do it out of anger alone. He told me, quietly, over coffee one evening, that he couldn't build a life with someone who had let his own mother be pushed out the door to hide a lie. By November, Ashley accepted a plea deal, restitution of $210,000, paid over a structured settlement, along with 18 months of probation and a permanent record. It wasn't the full amount taken. Some of it, the remodeling work, mostly, could never really be recovered. But it was something. It was more than nothing. Kevin got primary custody of Eli and Mia. Ashley kept scheduled visitation, supervised, for the first 6 months per the family court's order. The rental property was sold, and the proceeds went toward restitution. The Lexus was returned to the dealership. 6 months after that birthday party, I moved back into the guest room of Kevin's house. Not because he asked me out of guilt this time, but because Eli asked me himself, standing in my apartment doorway with a drawing he'd made to stick figures under a sun, labeled Grandma and Dad. "Can you come stay with us again, Grandma? It's quieter with you there." I cried a little, right there in the doorway. I let myself, finally. Almost a year to the day since that April kitchen conversation, I was cleaning out a closet in Kevin's garage, the one where we'd stored some of Frank's old things after he passed. I found a small wooden box, one I hadn't opened in years. It had a lock on the front, old-fashioned, brass, the kind that hasn't needed a key in decades because nobody makes them anymore. I reached into my coat pocket, an old habit, and found the copper key I'd carried since that April night, the one Frank had given me years earlier off his old keyring, calling it, half-joking, the key to us. Because it had come from the very first apartment we'd shared as newlyweds and never fit anything since. It fit the lock on the box. Inside were old photographs. Our wedding day, Kevin as a baby. A folded letter Frank had written me the year he was diagnosed, one I'd never found before, tucked beneath a stack of photos, telling me that whatever happened to him, he trusted me to take care of our family, and that I'd know what to do, because I always had. I sat on the garage floor for a long while, holding that letter, understanding finally what that little key had been waiting to open all along. Kevin found me out there 20 minutes later. I showed him the letter. He read it twice, quietly, and then he hugged me the way he used to when he was small, before any of this. Before Ashley, before the forged signatures, before the door he'd once asked me to walk out of. "I should have trusted you from the start," he said. "You were protecting your marriage," I told him. "That's not a sin, Kevin. You just trusted the wrong person to protect it with you. Here's what I've learned. If you've stayed with me this long, love makes people slow to see betrayal, especially from someone they've chosen to build a life with. But love also gives people the strength to fix what's broken once they finally see it clearly. The people who truly love you will come looking for you, even after they've asked you to leave. So let me ask you something before you go. Have you ever had someone you trusted ask you to step back, only to find out later they were protecting a lie instead of protecting themselves from you? I want to hear about it. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight. And tell me honestly, what would you have done in my place? If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe, because there are more stories like mine still to come. This has been The Quiet Rise. I'll see you in the next one.